We can count back 400 years of the most brutal treatment. Look, they took my name, my language, my culture. They killed my mother, my father, denied me religion, disallowed me to read or write for over 300 years. Reduced me to the level of an animal where they branded me on my chest, branded me on my pockets with a branding iron. And they called me 3/5 of a human being in the American Constitution. Is that the act of a human being or the act of a devil?
Have the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread?
Let's deal with common sense. The Egyptians of antiquity, not the Egyptians you see today in that land, okay? That usurped that land, those real Egyptians out into the Sudan, okay, the Sudanese, over there. Understand that. The Ottoman Turks and Arabs got together and pushed them out. So when you understand it's the Egyptians of antiquity that I asked about, what color were they? I'm asking you. We don't know. Everybody knows. They were black.
The evil that men should turn their brothers into beasts of burden, to slave and suffer in dumb anguish, be stripped of spirit and hope and faith, only because they are of another race, another creed.
Listen, where's your kingdom? Where's your land? Where's your castles? Before Alexander, name it, you can't, because it does not exist.
Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. It's your brother Bunyan, the brother Najee, and your brother Elisha coming at y'all again with another Sabbath discussion. Hopefully we can get some edification out of this. Let me allow my brothers to greet the channel, greet everybody in the channel. Let's start with my brother Najee. What's up, bro? How's it going, brother?
Hey, brother Bonnie, all good, brother Elisha. Good to be on with you, brothers, as always. Fam, hope everyone had a great Shabbat, and I think we're going to have a good one today, so hope you all are ready. Good to be on.
Yeah. Well, Elisha, Shalom, Mark.
Yeah, shalom. Shabbat shalom to everybody in the chat. Zion to the four corners, my elder brother Cleo somewhere out there in the world. Good brother Banya Najee. So, I mean, I know we're going to have a blessed Shabbat, and we're going to talk about some things that pertain to the kingdom and get some edification. So let's get rich, get busy.
Indeed. So once again, let's just start off with all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High, whom sent His Son to be a propitiation for Israel, for the forgiveness of sins and the restoration of our nation, right? So that we return to Him and be what He truly created us to be, a holy people, peculiar, right? So what we're going to be talking about today is the second Exodus chronology. We're gonna get into some chronology concerning the 400 years. We're gonna have a little bit of discussion on that end, and then we're gonna dovetail into some more discussion of current events and what it means for us today, and how we can pinpoint where we are today, and what it looks like. Some of these things you brothers and sisters may be familiar with, and some things you may not be familiar with. But nevertheless, your brothers that salt of the earth, we are here to discuss these things with you and to basically fellowship with our brothers and sisters out there that we love, and that, you know, we come together and be of one mind, right? So first thing I want to talk about, just before we get into the chronology and the second Exodus, I just want to ask you, brothers, what does the second Exodus mean to you, brothers and sisters, brothers out there? And for the brothers and sisters in the chat, if you want to participate, tell me what the second Exodus means to you. What does that mean when you hear the second Exodus? Let's start with my brother Elisha. What does that mean to you, brother?
The second Exodus represents really the totality of the scriptures when the Mashiach reigns 1,000 years, as was intended when our people first went into the land to serve the Most High with joy and gladness, that the earth would be corrected, that the right rulership will be on the earth, our slavery would be over, our people would be the sons and daughters of the Most High, as we were always destined to be. So the main thing the second Exodus represents is a relocating. You know, some people might use the words politically, reparations and repatriation. In a lot of ways, that's what it is in a political type phraseology. But for us, it just represents salvation. Salvation from the captivity, to be restored to the names that the Most High gave us, to serve the Most High under his constitution, under his law, statutes, commandments, in the Mashiach, in a perfect and just way, and not have all this turmoil, murder, and all the things that go on the earth that has disconnected us from the Most High, disconnected us from our heritage. So that's what the second Exodus represents, a new beginning, the true rebirth of Jacob.
Amen. Dear brother Najee,
Yeah, for me, the second Exodus, I mean, that term Exodus, right? It's just a term, right? For me, it just represents the totality and the completion of what the Most High put us through in terms of our disobedience and bringing us back to him. It's the completion of the 400-year prophecy of our 400 years of being, removed away from the Most High, away from his face, not being able to, as a nation, prosper in any way. All of the things that we have suffered around the world as Israelites, one of those being not even knowing we are Israelites. This second Exodus means to me just our awakening, the coming together of the dry bones, the coming together of our people. It means a lot. It means all of that to me, and so much more that I don't think we have time for me to explain. But yeah, man, it's an exciting moment for me. I think sometimes I think we take for granted the actual time that we are living in. I think we sometimes we don't fully understand that all this that has been prophesied before in Scripture, we are living in this time, man. It's an amazing time, the awakening of the Israelites and the coming together of the dry bones. It is such an amazing time. So yeah, that's what it means to me, bro.
Amen. It's awesome to hear all these and also to see the comments on the page. I believe the second Exodus embodies all of these things. An Exodus in itself means a mass departure. A lot of times we look for these things to be just like, people leaving out one at a time and things like that, but we got to understand the Most High is going to do some great and wonderful and powerful things and terrible things to these nations in regards of delivering his people out of their hands. And we patiently wait for these things to happen. But as Israelites and as those who have adherent to the scriptures and understand and have biblical prowess, you know, we read the scriptures and we know that we can look at our surroundings and see these things happening. You know, we can see these things coming to pass, and we ourselves are walking prophecy. You know, so yeah, you know, everything that we're seeing in the chat and the things that you brothers just said, these things embody what the second Exodus is. Sister CC says, for me, the second Exodus means we're going home. I can remember asking the Father who we were before this captivity. How did we worship him? And what did we call him? I wanted to know our true past. And yes, all these things are coming to fruition. All these things are coming about, and understanding of who we are and where we're going and where we've been. You know, all these things are happening within the scope of a small amount of time. Even, you know, just to think about what the Most High is, and how everything revolves around him, the creator, and he's not subject to time, but we are. And even in that scope, which it's just a small amount of time that the Most High is bringing these things to pass. But I don't want to ramble on too much before I pass the mic to the brother Elisha, so we can start talking about this chronology and what this means and how we're going to get into that. So I'm gonna hand the mic over to you, brother Elisha, and I want you to kind of just usher us into this and what your thoughts is on this chronology and bring these things in, and let's get into it, right?
Yeah, no problem, bro. Now, the chronology is more of a timeline of how to count the years in the Bible, and in the Bible with great accuracy. It's going to tell us when certain people lived, how we can even trace back to the year that the Exodus happened. You know, how you can go into the history once you have that information, and to look up the pharaohs, whether it be Tutmos or Amenhotep, that basically are the ones who lived around the time that you have the Exodus, during the time of the Hyksos and things like that. So by us going into this timeline, or the chronology, is also the chronology, it's going to help us just to see the years. And I mean, it'd be tedious just to go through from the creation all the way into our time now, but you can do it. You can do it to some accuracy. We can't say with 100% accuracy that we can give you the day Abraham Jacob went and laid his head on the rock and he saw the angels descending upon a ladder. Can't say the exact day, but we can give you a time frame based off of what the Bible teaches us, which is also confirmed in the historians. You know, it can't be undervalued that the historians, like Josephus, whether you like him or whatever your political views on him is, you know, you can look at what he documented and what he's looking at and say, okay, he's counting the years of life, the timeline, the same way we can, because we have access to the scriptures. Something that our people didn't have back then. And I want y'all to get used to this phrase, something called the genuine article. That's something that we got to take into consideration when we think about people like Philo and Josephus, and to a lesser degree Eusebius of classical history, and other historical books that we use, that they have more of the genuine article in front of them of the scriptures. Even when transcribed or translated into the Greek, they have a more genuine book, a more genuine, most closely related version of the book to the first temple period and to the second temple period. Like the temple was still around when these brothers, our brothers, was actually surfing through the history and giving us account what was passed down by the scribes. So I'm gonna share my screen unless Brother Najee, Brother Banya, want to say something else.
No, good. Proceed.
No, go ahead, bro.
All right, so this is going to be real quick. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. We also got a video we can refer you to, where Brother Banya, pretty much shows you that Egypt was not the 400 years. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
All right. I don't need to make it any bigger, though.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think we got the thing filled up. If you, it's just like you could actually fill it up if it's not going to be a issue with you going through it, just for the sake of those who may be looking on their phones, so they can see a little bit more bigger.
We'll go by each slide, man. Let's see. So Originally, we called it the first because you don't got to look at the 400 years of last captivity, but this is how we would count the Bible. And you can get your Bibles and you can, go along. And this is pretty much how Josephus did it. If you want to count the years in the Bible, you would count the years of life or according to the next birth of the firstborn. So it says in the manuscript, Genesis 5:3, that Adam was 130 years. And what did he do? This is when he had Seth, or Genesis 5:6, or Genesis 5:3. And Seth in Genesis 5:6 he was 105 years when he had Enos. And we can just keep on going down, which is going to pretty much help us see how to add the years up. So after 460 years of creation, you got Mahalalel. Now, if you want to know the BC year, you would subtract the 460 from 4,000. And that would actually, and the reason we're going to say 4,000 is because for most common accounts, we're playing back from a 6,000 year timeline. So we would be in what we would call the 6,000th year in our time now. So most historians, when you see something like BC, and some historians, they might say it's 7 years. So they might have Noah was inside. I'm sorry, Adam was inside the garden for 7 years. They'll say we're just going to go back to 4,000 years. We're just going to rock it out like that, similar to what Josephus did. So if you wanted to get an understanding of what BC, you would subtract 460 years right here from 4,000, and you would be at what, 3640 BC. So during the time of Mahalalel, it would be 3640 BC. Which we're not going to concentrate on that. We're just going to show you how to count the years. And if y'all are interested in actually getting the BCs of it and historical figures, we can do that at another time if brothers and sisters find that they are interested in that subject. So you can see as we keep going, we had 687 years of creation, 874, so forth and so on. And these are the pivotal parts right here inside the creation or in our timeline, because now we're talking about how old Noah is when the flood comes in, and we're documenting these years to give us accuracy on how we can look at the timeline and where we are at today and what figures lived at that time. So now we're looking at the chronology of years of creation until Noah. So Genesis 5:32, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the understanding is that Shem is the eldest, Ham is the second, and Japheth is the third. Japheth would be the youngest. Shem being, I think, about 7 years older than Japheth, according to, I believe, Jasher, which, we're not going to go into that, but this would be the eldest to the youngest. Shem would be oldest, Ham would be second, Japheth would be third. So in Genesis 5:32, we see that Noah's 500 years. So this is 1,556 years of creation. Noah bore children, or he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And again, like I said before, we would subtract 1,556 from 4,000, and it would give you an accurate time frame for how currently you view the BC situation when you look at history, or how they commonly refer to as before Christ. And then you got what is auto dominion, which is supposed to be after the death, or CE for common era. So Genesis 7:11 will represent 600 years. So now we will be at 1,656 years of creation until the flood. And then we would add these years. Noah in Genesis 9:28, Noah lived 350 years after the flood, and Noah died, which will be 2,006 years after of the years of creation. You subtract that from 4,000, we would be at the year 1994 BC. Now, you obviously got to give or take 1 to 7 years, or even 10 years. Well, I know some of you look at the creation inside Genesis says the first day is 1,000 years, the second day is 2,000, which we're not going in that direction. We'll just kind of go with the plain English of it, the way Josephus did. He didn't get into the book of the Psalms and would say that the first day of creation was 1,000 years and so forth and so on. So by the time Noah got so the time Adam was put on the earth, it was 6,000 years. He didn't go into all that. So we're just going into the plain understanding of it. All right. So the generations of Shem. And again, we will follow the same formula. And Noah was 500 years old. He begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Anybody want to say something?
No, we listening. We listening.
All right. So ultimately, we're going to end up going towards where we get to the Exodus. But it says these generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad, or Arphaxad, 2 years after the flood. And we would count those years exactly how it says, given the formula that we just used. Noah at 500, Noah at 6. Then Shem was 100 years old, 2 years after the flood. Genesis 11 and 11. Shem lived 500 years. So at that time, it would be 1,658 years after the flood, which is actually, it says, gives a similar account in the book of Josephus. I don't know, we're going to look at that real quick, but it actually kind of says that we're lined up with this number. Not kind of, but does say.
So that's 65, that's 1658 BC.
No, that's 1,658 years of creation. You would subtract 1,658 from 4,000, and that would give you your BC. So
Okay.
if somebody want to do that real quick,
658
from 4,000. So what is that? I believe that's 2442 BC. Am I correct?
2000.
Might be 2442.
Hold on, let me get that. 58. Yeah, that's 2342.
Okay,
So that's 2,342 BC.
So that would represent 2,342 BC. And now we would get into the time. And this is the thing. Another thing that's beautiful about these timelines. You'll notice that certain people lived at certain times that you don't really think about them. Like you don't think about Shem living into the life of Abraham, but he does. You don't think about Abraham living into the life of Jacob, but he does. You know, you don't think about Adam being around before the flood came. I mean, during the life of Noah, but he was. You know, these things that you'll see just by going through this timeline, that certain people were still alive at the time of other of our fathers. And another thing that's great about that is that some of these historical figures, according to Josephus, were written about by other nations. Like Abraham was written about extensively by the people of Damascus. They wrote of him by name, where other nations changed his name. So just by knowing these timelines, when you see certain figures, and you might see the name of the people from, say, Persia or whatever, and it says his name was Akatea, Salamilan, just a name I'm making up. Those names can represent fathers that were renamed in their culture. And that's how it was. Even when you look at the Gilgamesh epic, everybody knows the Gilgamesh epic is talking about Noah and the flood. Everybody knows that. And you got different accounts where people say, nah, that's different accounts of different people. It's not. It's different nations giving different accounts of the same situation. And by counting the years and understanding the times of the BC and when whoever was born, you can get a better, it makes it more interesting when you're looking at history. It makes it more studyable. It makes it more acceptable to you because you can see your family. You can see our people being written about. So now we're at Arphaxad. Oh, I can't pronounce his name. Arphaxad. By him giving the years of his life 35 years, it would be 1656 plus 35. Now we're at 1,693 years of creation. And we would keep going according to that formula. And each time we would subtract the years of creation from 4,000 to give you a rough estimate of the time frame that we're in, or that they were in. I should have just put the BCs on here, but I wanted to leave it out. So as we keep going forward, you can see the formula playing out. You can review this video if you're interested in just, dating some of the historical figures, even getting to the point where you're dating the Hyksos. So when we get to Nahor, 1849 plus 29 is 1,876 years, 78 years of creation. So now by the time we get down to Terah and the birth of Abraham, Terah was 70 years old at the birth of Abraham. That's 1878 plus 70. That's 1948, 1,948 years of creation. And that would mean Abraham was born, or Abram was born in 2252 BC. Matter of fact, I think that's wrong. I think that's 20. Is that 2052 BC?
That's 20. That says 2252 BC right there.
Yeah, but I'm talking. I might have miscalculated that. That should be 2052. Calculate that. If you take and subtract 1948 from 4,000, you actually have 2052.
Okay.
So
yeah.
it shouldn't be 2252.
Yeah.
Misprint on my part. It should be 2052.
It's 2052, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
2052.
All right. So when you writing down all these numbers, you can mess. It's real easy to mess up. Believe me. Especially if you write it down on paper, which did that too some years ago.
You had it correct right here, though. You got it right here.
All right, no doubt. So the same thing now. We're looking at Abram. When Abram was 75 years old, we're adding that to the time of birth, 1948 to 75. Abram is the years 23 years of creation when Abraham leaves, when the Most High separates him. And again, like I said, we subtract 23 from 4,000, and then we would have our year, which would be 1977 BC. That's what we would be at right here when Abraham is separated. And here we go again with the covenant. Again, we would get down and we would establish these numbers. And this is just right here for those, where, like I said, Brother Banya we can point you to the video where Brother Banya eloquently put together how Egypt was not the 400 years. But even when you get to this point, this is the time of the covenant when Abraham was 99 years old. So that's actually 2,047 years after the years of creation. And what you would do here, if you wanted to know exactly when Moses got the law, you would take and subtract 4,000. You take 4,000, subtract 2,047. That would bring you to the year 1953 BC. And you subtract the year 1953 from 430, which would be the split amount of time that our people spent in the land of Canaan and Egypt. And you would have the law being given to Moses in the year 1523 BC. And I don't know if anybody has checked, but you got two pharaohs. I guess you could say a span of three. You got Amenhotep and Tutmos the first, with Amenhotep's father being the one who actually was around during the expelling of the Hyksos, which would go along with, the Bible history, because they teach us that the Exodus happened in 1200 BC under Ramses. We're talking about a 300-year period, or almost 300 years, that they have led us in the wrong direction. And that's why it's really no proof during the time of Ramses that our people were there, because we wasn't there in 1200 BC. We wasn't there at all.
I wanted to interject real quick. Also, push that high button right there at the bottom of your screen, so that's not not that. You got rid of the whole thing.
I had a feeling that was going to happen.
Because the thing is,
bring it back up, bro.
Just bring it up now.
Just push the high button so you don't have that impairing anything. But yeah, man, a lot of the churches, and I believe the Sister Wives Society said she said these pagan churches have changed the calendar days of the years so much that the changing for us to know what actual year we're in. September means 7, but it's the 9th month. And you know what? Absolutely. And I was actually talking to somebody about that also, how Octo means 8, right? But October is like the 10th month, right? So yeah, they're all off, and especially with the eschatology, biblical eschatology, they're all over the place. They don't even consider things like this, how you can look at certain key figures within the Bible to actually do the calculations of where we are today. So a lot of people are way off with the eschatology because they're not looking at the key biblical figures. They're just saying, "Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," and they don't have any understanding of the historical points within the biblical structure that we're looking at right now, in the chronology. So notice how the brother also the birth of Abraham and the covenant. So he's going somewhere right here. So I'm gonna let the brother continue.
Now, can you so y'all can see my screen clear, right?
Yeah. We see it.
So, now we would continue on. We got Abraham, and Abraham, when he was 99 years old, we got the covenant of the Most High that was given to him, circumcision. Then, when he was 100, he had Isaac. And like I said, you would add 2047 plus 1 because he's 100 now, and Isaac is birth. And like I said, we're going to go down the line from Isaac's birth to Jacob's birth, and we can continue to go on, even always as far as the Mashiach. Now, after that time, it would be some hurdles because of how history has been messed with by the Roman powers, the Greek powers. Even Josephus talks about how they play some games with in antiquity. But leading up to the time of the Mashiach, or during the time of 70 AD, we can actually use our history book and count down to those times. One second, people. All right. Yeah.
Book bag Bam might have had somewhere.
One that my mom.
Yeah, I'm going to mute the brother for a second. But yeah, just like the brother was saying, we can look at these key figures and we can count down in order to find out where we're at today. Now, again, this discussion is the second X is chronology. So be patient. What we're going to show is we're going to lead up into today, and we're going to show you some key events that we must be looking forward to, and also the importance of some of these things concerning the feast days, and also we like always, we're going to have a few things to say about the Jewish people and their role in all of this, and some things that they're doing that you might want to look at. But let's get the brothers done now. You ready?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, all right. So we would continue on, and we would go to when Isaac actually marries Rebekah, which is when he was at 40. This is according to Genesis 25 and 20. And we're now just by doing the math, because Isaac is 40, and we know how old Abraham was when he had Isaac. And like I said, we have a video that the brother Banya did that can actually help you just as well on this subject. That because Isaac is now 40, by implication, Abraham is 140. So his exact age as you go along. So now we're talking about Jacob's birth. Everything lining up in perfect symmetry. That Jacob is now born when Isaac is 60. Abraham is 160. Jacob is born. So Jacob is actually alive, living, when Abraham is still alive. And then we're gonna back this up with some history. And it says in Genesis 25:7, these are the days of the years of Abraham's life, which he lived 115 years, which would be 165. I'm sorry, 175. And we'll back that up with the book of Jasher, and it reads Jasher chapter 26, verse 29. And it was at that time that Abraham died in the 15th year of the life of Jacob and Esau, which we just perfectly counted down. Even though it doesn't say this per se inside the King James, but we were actually able to count down just by doing the math in the King James to show that Jacob was 15 when Abraham died. And the sons of Isaac, all the days of Abraham were 175 years. And he died and was gathered to his people in a good old age, old and satisfied with days. And Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him. And so we give the timeline we show right here. If y'all can see that. Sorry about that. Abraham has died at 75 years after the birth of Isaac at the age of 175. Isaac was then 75 years old. Isaac was 6 years old at Jacob's birth, making Jacob 15 years old when Abraham dies. So we keep on going, and we can keep following the same path. We established when Abraham died and how old Jacob was. Now, Isaac dies at the age of 180 years old, according to Genesis 35:28. That would bring us to 2,028 years of creation. Again, we would subtract that from 4,000. Isaac died. Jacob is 120 years old. And a good thing about knowing, that Isaac was alive at this time, like how renowned he would have been, how respected, even Shem being alive at some of these ports in time, because Shem actually lives a long time. And you'll notice when you do this and you say, okay, Shem died at this such and such time, you'll be like, Shem actually lived during the course of certain fathers' lives that you would not have considered. So here we go again. Now we're going to retrace. Now, the one thing about doing Joseph, you have to do some retracing in your calculations. It says after 2 years of famine, Joseph was 39 years of age. And this is where knowing Jacob's age comes into importance. Jacob, his father, now joins him in Egypt. Genesis 45:6. Joseph being 39 years, his father Jacob being 130 years. So what we would do is obviously we subtract 130 from 39. So when Joseph was born, Jacob is 91 years old. So that's what it's talking about. He was Joseph was the son of his old age. He was 91 years old. So a lot of times we read that scripture, we're not really thinking about how old he actually was, but we would have his exact age. So when Joseph was born, Jacob was 91 years old, as cited in, and we're going to use our historian to back us up, make sure we're on the right track. In the book of Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, book 2, chapter 4, paragraph 165, the second year of the famine, when Joseph is 39 years old, his father Jacob and his brothers moved into Egypt, which is confirmed. Genesis 47, 9-11, Jacob enters into Egypt at the age of 130 with all his house. Now we can go back and calculate Joseph into the timeline. And here we would have at 17 years old, when he was enslaved, Isaac is 168 years old. So when Joseph was first taken away, Isaac was still alive. First 17 years. He was still alive at this time. Jacob is 108 years old at this time when he suffers the loss of Joseph. Genesis 41, 46, and 47, Joseph is now 30 years old, 229 years after creation. Joseph is ruler in Egypt. 7 years of plenty starts. Joseph is 37, 7 years of plenty ends, 7 years of famine begins. Now, Ephraim and Manasseh, even though I didn't put them in this timeline, and we can actually bring the 12 tribes in and calculate them into the timeline whenever if brothers and sisters actually interested in seeing exactly how old they were when each person was born, we can tell you exactly how old, who's the old. Well, we know who the oldest is, but we can tell you their year of age accordance with each other just by going back and calculating the amount of years Jacob was in Laban's land, working for him just to marry his daughter, Rachel. So by doing those calculations, it would actually give us the year of each tribe, birth, and so forth and so on. So when you read other books like Josephus and Jasher, and you're seeing their age and the difference in it, you can apply it to the years of creation and what BC it would have been, and then start to connect those things to historical times and events. So when Joseph was 39 years old, all the tribes move into Egypt. We're talking about 2,238 years after the years of creation. When Jacob was 147, we're talking about 2,255 years after creation. Joseph at this time is 56 years old when Jacob dies. And then Joseph dies at the age of 110. And that's 2,309 years after creation. And believe it or not, this actually takes us to the Hyksos period, which is, I think, in 1700 BC, all the way down to 1500 BC. Allows us to line up, and it would give us some insight to why why Josephus felt as though we would Hyksos. I think he later recanted that, or so him as historians say he might have been mixed up, but they lived at the same time, the same period. So if you're looking at that, and this is why you got a lot of detractors against the Bible and the history, because the church, they teach that we were in Egypt in the time of Ramses for 400 years, and nobody can prove such a thing. There'll be no way to establish that biblically or historically. Now, and that brings in a lot of the detractors. The detractors are going to come in. And say, "Oh, listen, y'all teach that the Israelites were in the land during the time of Ramses." There's no history that would say that. Then y'all are teaching that the Israelites were in the land in Ramses for 400 years. And we can't prove 4 years because of the timeline. So now you have those. Go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to interject with a lot of Christians that and I was looking for that information where archaeology actually proves that we didn't even come into Egypt at that point, which you're proving right now. You know, so if for the 400 years to be valid, you know, you're missing all this time within Egypt. You're missing over 200 years where you're saying that we was there, but we wasn't. You know, but that's all I want to say.
Yeah, so that actually gives rise to the naysayers to come along and say y'all don't have a history, that y'all are claiming something that never happened, that the Bible is a wise tale, because the church, knowing this information, because this same information is not like I have a unique Bible other than the ones you have, and the heathen did take and transliterate a lot of the Greek scriptures and then into the English language, into the Latin. So they see these timelines here, and I've be actually seeing some Edomites that have accurately depicted these things. But the mainstream, they choose to make sure that it doesn't line up correctly, that we cannot line up correctly, or as into who actually was around. And that makes people look at our people as legends. Was there a Moses? Was there a Joseph? Because they have us at a time where no history can prove we were in Egypt 400 years during the time of Ramses, let alone 4 years in the time. But if you go back to the proper time, you can see that we spent at least 215 years in Egypt, only 100 of which we actually spent in bondage. We didn't spend all our time in Egypt in bondage. Most of that time we spent there, we actually were, I'd say 93 years rather. Around 93 years, we actually were in good standing because we didn't start to get afflicted until Levi died. And it says that in the book of Jasher. We're not going to go into that book right now, but you can see that the whole life of Joseph, we didn't suffer no problems. So Joseph was 56 when we had already spent 17 years in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you count how long Joseph lived after, Joseph lived another 54 years after that. So you can count 17 and 54 and say that's 71 years. You know for certain that we didn't suffer any affliction just because Joseph was there 71 years. Well, let me pardon that part. When Joseph actually became ruler in Egypt, you would say that span lasted 80 years because he became ruler at the age of 30 and he died at the age of 110. So for at least 80 years, if you just wanted to go by that alone, you know that the first 80 years we were in Egypt, we were prominent people who suffered no affliction. None. Until Joseph dies, which the Bible backs up. Because it says Pharaoh did not know Joseph. So we know that at least 80 years we didn't suffer anything. If you didn't want to believe any other book.
And if you wanted to believe that the Egyptians did it, you would have to believe that as soon as Joseph died, then it started. But a lot of people now considering also that even after Joseph died, there was a time period after he died before the affliction actually began. Because you got to remember, like the customs of the Egyptians were to keep records of certain people that had great standing within their kingdom. This wasn't a normal man. This was a man that was second to the Pharaoh, right? This was a great ruler. They built monuments. They kept records of this man. So for a ruler to come in and not know who Joseph was, there had to be either a foreign ruler or a great amount of time had to pass. And I believe it was both. I believe
I'm sorry, bro. I just want to say real quick, don't we read in scripture that a Pharaoh arose who knew not Joseph? Mm-hmm. So we're just in that span, we're talking about a span of time where there is another Pharaoh that rises up that has no idea who Joseph is, has no idea what kind of ranking Joseph held in Egypt. We're talking about basically a different type of Egypt that's arising, an Egypt that doesn't recognize the prominency of Joseph.
Exactly.
So we're talking about a span of time.
Exactly.
So we're going to read this small portion inside the book of Josephus, just to show that history does give an account of our people by different names. And the thing is, this is actually known, but what happens is because the timeline that most commonly, even in your movies that you watch, constantly misappropriates or moves us further along in the timeline, we now have our fathers not being properly dated or recorded. So now you see figures you might read in a random book and not knowing that that's Abraham you're reading about, that was written of by the Chaldees or by Manetho or by the earlier Greeks. And so we're going to read this small part right here that says in the book of Josephus. Can y'all see my screen?
Can see it, yeah.
All right, it says, and God afforded them a longer time of life on account of their virtue and the good use they made of it in astronomical and geometrical discoveries. Now he even goes on to say that the food they ate allowed them to grow bigger, but that's not what we're talking about today, so we won't address it. It says, which would not have afforded them the time for telling the periods of the stars unless they had lived 600 years, for the great year is complete in that interval. Oddly enough, the number 6 representing rest, the great year, or 700 years, would represent the great year in the 600-year period, at least as we're talking about in astronomy, in the movement of the stars and the cycle of the stars, how it's affecting the earth, that our people live. That's why Enoch, or even our fathers before then, could give a great account of what's going on in the heavens, because they live so long that they can document the cycles of the stars and the moon and all these things and how it affects the earth, when the blood moons were going to come, when the earth was going to shake, when anything would happen on the earth, these things were replicated. So by them living so long, they can give a proper account. Now it says, now I have for witnesses to what I have said all that have written antiquities, both among the Greeks and barbarians, even for Manetho, who wrote the Egyptian history, and Barrios, who collected the Chaldean monuments, and Mochus and Hittite, and besides these, Hieronymus the Egyptian, and those who composed the Phoenician history agreed to what I hear say. Herosius also, and Hecticus, and Hellenicus, and Aculeius, if I'm pronouncing them wrong, you got to sue me. And besides these, Ophorus and Nicholas relate the ancients lived 1,000 years. But as to these matters, let everyone look upon them as he thinks fit. Now we're going to go into another part where he talks about they actually wrote of Abraham and knew. Some of them wrote of him by name. And we're going to go with, I think this is right here. Let's see. I don't think that's the part. We're going to go, is it here? I'll let y'all know when we get there. I think this might be generation of flood. We're going to check this part out right here. I think this is the part that talks about Abram. It says in Barrios, and we read about him earlier, he was one of the historians of the different nations, mentions our father Abram without naming him, when he says thus, in the 10th generation after the flood, there was among the Chaldeans a man righteous and great, skillful in celestial science. Abraham, if you go into some of the history, was actually taught by Shem. He was instructed by Shem, and Noah as well. Or I might be mixing up the two, but it is an account that Shem, if I'm not mistaken, Bonnie, was it Shem who taught Abraham, or did he teach Noah? I think it was. I think he taught them both. But anyway, because Shem lived so long, he was able to teach and pass down to Abraham the celestial sciences, or astronomy, and the great year according to 600 years or 700 years of time, and how that affects, how that moves in the heavens, how they can say certain things were going to happen in the earth, particularly when it came to catastrophes or weather patterns and great things like that, because these things were written in the stars. It says, but Hecticus does more than barely mention him, for he composed and left behind a book concerning him. Now, again, we're going to keep belaboring this point, because the way the Bible is taught to us, and that they remove Abraham from his proper time period, you don't even know that these same people who wrote about Abraham has been stolen in history. So now when you hear about these citations, you don't even know it's talking about Abraham anymore. they've made sure that you don't know what's talking about Abraham. But it says that Hecticus spoke of him by name. It says, and Hecatas does more than barely mention, for he composed and left behind him a book concerning him. And Nicholas of Damascus, in the 4th book of his history, says thus: Abraham reigned at Damascus, being a foreigner, who came with an army out of the land above Babylon, called the land of the Chaldeans. But after a long time, he got him up and removed from that country also with his people, and went into the land they then called the land of Canaan, but now the land of Judea. And this, when his posterity were become a multitude, as to which posterity of his we relate their history in another work. And now the name of Abram is even still famous in the country of Damascus, and there is shown a village named from him, the habitation of Abram. Now, obviously, the habitation of Abram is not said in the English vernacular that way. It's said in the language of those from Damascus, which we probably won't never hear, because we'll never know that it's named after him unless, I guess, we visit the land. So this show bears the importance of the timeline and the chronology, and sets a foundation. We're going to show at different points certain things that we read biblically. They purposely made sure that we didn't get to see it in its proper context. Hey, brothers, y'all want to say anything?
No, is that it? Are you...
Yeah, that's it on this subject, brother. We addressed what I wanted to address on that, unless you brothers want to go deeper into it.
No, I don't want to go deeper. I just want to kind of establish a question on the number. So from creation, you counted up until Joseph, I guess, to kind of the birth of the Israelites. What would you say, or what is the number? What is the number of years from creation to the, I guess we could say, the birth of the Israelites, or wherever you stopped? You stopped at Joseph, I'm assuming, right?
Well, we'll go back to it, and you tell me exactly what you're asking.
Okay. All right.
All right. So tell me what you
So so you started at creation.
That's right.
And you end at Joseph, right? Joseph died.
We did fast forward a little bit in the middle, just to show the year that that Moses got the law, just to briefly address it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're stopping at Joseph, as far as just showing that we're just how to add up the years, which is the point.
Right. So from creation to Joseph's death is 2,309 years. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
Okay. Excellent. Yep.
And if you wanted to look at that in BC terms, you would subtract 2309 from 4,000, and I believe that'll give you what, 1691?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
right. 1691. Yep.
Right. So 1691, it would be 1691 BC, which would be, like I said, is a 150-year to 200-year time frame of the Hyksos dynasty. And you can see what pharaohs lived according to that time. I think Amenhotep lived. Another pharaoh, I believe Tutmos, lived after that, he being his son. So you can line those things up, and you can see. And this is another thing too, just to say it quickly. You go inside the book of Samuel, I believe it is. It says that from the law of Moses, from the time we left Egypt, was 480 years to the temple period. So if you subtract 480 years from 1523, you would have the first temple actually was built in the 1,000. What is it? Let me subtract that. Somebody give me that math. So somebody subtract 1523, or my bad. Subtract 480 from 1523.
You got 1,043.
Okay. Now, when you go into a lot of timelines or chronologies that Christians teach, or just the church, a lot of times they have the first temple being erected, some of them at least, inside, I believe, 900 and something BC. It's like 900 and something. So you would see is a divergence there, that of time. And then, like I said, any incorrection when you're talking about a timeline where you can confirm a history can bring detractors. There's going to bring naysayers, is going to bring debaters, because now you're writing people into a time that they didn't live. And now you got somebody trying to prove they lived at a time that they didn't. And usually archaeology is not going to back up the person who's on the wrong end of history. Even like, but if you're talking about Egyptian history, you can be as wrong as you want, because a lot of times they're carbon dating, and nobody really, a lot of the so-called historians are all over the place when it comes to what pharaoh lived here and there and all these things. And the Egyptians didn't do you no favors by destroying artifacts of previous pharaohs, whether if they didn't like them or whatever political situation was happening. And also the fact that some of the pharaohs that ruled over Egypt actually were an Egyptian. Some of them was Canaanites, some of them was Assyrians. You had all that going on. But in our history, it's more direct, because we lived under a monarchy.
So just based off of this talent, what this shows is that a lot of the people, or I'm quote unquote people who claim to be biblical scholars within the Christian community, don't have the basic understanding of counting these timelines to see where these prophecies are actually being fulfilled when we start talking about the 400-year prophecy. They go to one verse and they say 430 years sojourning, and then they end it with that, not having a deeper understanding of what that time frame really meant. And then when you bring things into it like the Septuagint, they go postal. They don't even want to hear that. Oh, it says 430, that's it, 439. That's not the end of the story. Not if you take the Bible seriously. Not if you take the Most High's word seriously. You can't just say, oh, 430, that's the end of it. You got to go into the specifics of it. 430 years sojourning, not 430 years affliction, which the brother just showed. The affliction didn't even start until after Joseph died, and then you have some years to carry on before after that also.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is the thing too. A lot of Christians, and I mean, they can proclaim how much they love the Bible all they want. It's easy to see that the Israelites were not inside the land of Egypt during the time of Ramses. I mean, it's plain to see. It's not hard. It's not complicated to know that. So why keep trying to teach a point like that? Why make all your biblical movies and your understanding of scripture be based off of Ramses? Why are we even still talking about Ramses? We have no affiliation with Ramses whatsoever, according to just simply counting the Bible. And I'm telling you, a lot of them know how to count it, because Josephus helps you with that. You can go into his book, and this is not like hidden information. And this is not rocket science. Me and the brothers don't come from Cambridge University or Oxford, having studied this, or even our elder brother Cleo, just to articulate or show the numbers and how you can calculate them. So, like I said, it messes everything up when you purposely. It's one thing to be off a few years, which is easy to do. But it's a whole nother thing when you have a people being in the land 200, 300 years, and you know for certain that that's not how you should depict it. It was a video, I'm sorry, not a video, but a documentary done some years ago about the guy did it on the Exodus. It was on Netflix. And he showed that our people was more than likely innovaris during the time of in Egypt during probably the 15th century BC. He had us in the land around the proper time. And he showed the archaeology. So it's like, you have the institution of religion hiding these things from us, when, be honest, we're really at fault. We should be able to defend just using the Bible. We should be able to take these and be like, listen, I can show you right here, and stand against any theologian without contradiction, without fear that he's going to say something he can't pry away from you the numbers that are right in front of you. He can't make you believe something like that unless you give him the floor and omit what you got right in your hands. That's why the scriptures, what does it say? It shall be frontless in thy eyes and in thy hand. Why should it be as frontless as frontless between thy eyes or on the head and inside thy hand? Why should it be there? Because if it is, you don't have to worry about somebody playing footsie with you to pull you off the beaten path. It should already be as frontless between eyes, should already be in your hand. We live in a time where it's there. We have access that our people didn't have back then. Sometimes we talk like you believe everybody back in Mashiach's time had a Bible in the house. None of them had a Bible in the house. You had to be rich and affluent to have a Bible, to have the Old Testament. they did not have the advantages that we have.
Mm-hmm.
No, they didn't have those advantages. They was operating purely off the spirit of the Most High. You know, we're fortunate because we have those things of what they did in writing as examples, so that we can also operate in that same spirit. But we have to study that. You have to study the Bible. We can't just sit in front of a preacher, pass the collection plate, sing hymns, and then get up and go back into the same way that we was living. You know, and it's crazy because what we see going on in a lot of the religious communities, as far as Christianity goes, is an agenda to suppress the information from the Bible instead of bringing it out and bringing it forward so people can know. You know, but it's such a deep hatred for our people that they don't want those things to be revealed because it goes against the agenda of keeping our people stagnant.
Brother, when we get a chance, we're gonna go into some of these citations inside the letters of Pontius Pilate. And inside some of these letters of Pontius Pilate, it gives you some insight into the psychology of our people, the mindset. And this is, you can identify when you hear some of the traits that are documented. And I don't often I've read several of them, but some of them you don't go by when you read like these letters of Pontius Pilate or different letters like that. But when you go through them, you see the historical data or value. Then you're like, okay, this has some historical significance. So I'm gonna see if I can grab up this PDF because I believe I have it, and I'm gonna try to share it with you guys so we can go through this PDF on the letters of Pontius Pilate just to get a historical perspective on some of the traits of our people. Never mind the cover. Am I still being seen?
No, you're good. We see you.
All right.
No, we can't see your screen. Are you talking about?
Don't go into it yet because there's some more stuff that I wanted to go into.
No problem. No problem.
We're gonna see a couple of videos, just to give the short view on what you just did concerning the time span. What I want to do is just do a review of the video that we did on the salt of the earth concerning how many years they spent in the land of Canaan. And this can be done strictly off the Bible, like the brother was saying. You got all these historians, all these people that say they're scholars, and they're not offering an adequate time frame to explain their understanding of scripture. So we're going to give it to you over here in the salt of the earth. We're going to give you the time frame, like the brother just gave you the chronology. Now I'm going to show you a video that you can watch on the salt of the earth. It's a 5-minute video, just detailing how long we were in the land of Canaan, and it's a quick video. So I'm going to share that. If anybody, brothers, have anything to say before I bring this up, brother Najee?
Oh nah, I love this video. So
the video is excellent, man. That's a good. I can't wait to see it again.
All right, so we're gonna share this real quick. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta stop because for some reason I didn't push the audio. Hold on. Okay. Share audio. Bam. And we're ready to go. So I'm gonna share this real quick. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. It's on the screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, so that speaks on. Can you hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it.
All right, so here we go. I wanted to take a moment to discuss the scripture in Galatians that speaks on the law coming 430 years after the covenant. It says in Galatians 3:17, "And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect." Now, we understand the covenant spoken of to be the covenant that the Most High made with Abraham. Thus, we also understand that the start of the 430-year sojourning did not start in Egypt, but at the point when the covenant was made with Abraham. Now, we use various extra biblical books
to support the understanding when we did the 400-year prophecy video. And we used the Septuagint, which says in Exodus 12 and 40, and the sojourning of the children of Israel while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 430 years. But I wanted to take a moment to show that even without those books, we could show this using just the KJV. Now, okay, Abraham was 75 years old when he received the covenant from God. And you can read this in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 4. And it says, Now the Lord said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. When Abraham was 75, God promised to make him a great nation. We know that Abraham was 100 years old when he had Isaac. How do we know? Because it says in Genesis 21 and 5, and Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. Now, Isaac was 60 years old when Jacob was born. Thus, Abraham would be 160 years old at the time of Jacob's birth. The age of Isaac is given in Genesis 25 and 26, and it says, And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. For those who don't know, a score equals 20 years. Thus, 80 would equal 60 years. 20, 40, 60. Again, Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born, and Isaac was 60 years old when Jacob was born. Then Abraham would have been 160 years old at the time of Jacob's birth. Jacob was 130 years old when he and his sons went into Egypt during the duration of the 400 year of sojourning. We know this because you can read it in Genesis 47 and 28. And it says, And Jacob lived in Egypt 17 years. So the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. So if we subtract 17 from 147, it equals 130, which is the age of Jacob when he and his family entered into Egypt. So now that we have all the numbers we need to find out how long they sojourned in Canaan, let's do the math. Abraham was 160 years old when Jacob was born. To get the length of time passed from the point of the covenant to the point of Jacob's birth, we must subtract 75 from 160, and it equals 85. Next, we must take that 85 years and add it to the age of Jacob when he came into Egypt. So 85 plus 130 equals 215. Thus, 215 years were the amount of time our forefathers dwelled in Canaan, which is the same amount of time they dwelled in Egypt. Understanding the full sojourning was 430 years. 215 plus 215 equals 430. All praises to the Most High. I hope this was helpful to you, Israel. Have a great day. Peace and blessings. All right. So, as you can see, it's been a long standing thing for
salt of the earth, to actually give the chronology and the numbers of how long Israel was sojourning in the land of Canaan and in the land of Egypt. We didn't just come across these scriptures and decide because we want to be Israel that we're going to make some changes to history, changes to chronology to try to fit ourselves within the prophecy. We are the only people on the face of the earth that fits the prophecies according to what's written. Now, I wanted to bring up another thing here because everybody wants to act like it's a coincidence. Everybody wants to act like it's, the 400 years in America is just a coincidence, but it's something that we want to look at. And let's take a look at this real quick. I'm going to add this to my screen real quick. And let's go back to Genesis and let's recall what the Most High said in the book of Genesis. Can you brothers see this?
Yeah, we can see it, bro.
All right, so I'm going to start from Genesis 1:13. And it says, in the evening, in the morning were the third day. And the Most High said, let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years right? So the Most High gave the firmaments in heaven, the lights in heaven, for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. Now I want to ask you, brothers, how do you count? How do you know that a day has passed?
Talking about the sun coming up, sun going down.
The sun coming up, sun going down. How do you know that a year has passed?
By the seasons going by and another season starting up. Same thing with the sun and the moon.
By a certain amount of revolutions of the sun and the moon, right?
Right.
How do you know that a season has come and gone?
Another season comes in.
That's right.
By the same methods, right?
All
right, so in these things are incorporated the sun and the moon, right? By the rising of the sun, going down of the sun, the moon, all these revolutions, right? Now, when we start talking about other signs, when we start talking about blood moons, when we start talking about eclipse, these things serve to be signs. When we see these things in the lights in the heavens, these things serve as signs. Now, why are we saying this? Because there are signs that are coming to pass that are or there are things happening within the heavens and within the firmament that are for signs unto Israel. They're not coincidences. All right. Now I want to share another video. Do you brothers have anything to say before I share this other video?
Nah, brother, come here. Continue to quarterback that thing.
Yep.
All right, great.
Go for it.
All right, great. So here's another video, right? Concerning the path of an eclipse on the United States. All right. Now let's look at this real quick. I'm gonna let this guy speak a couple of sentences and I'm gonna turn them off. Before I do that, let me go ahead and put this fair use up here real quick. All right.
Copyright disclaimer under section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. And this is a copyright disclaimer under section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips balance in favor of fair use.
All right. So here we go.
Key, you had an echo during the fair use. We just want to make sure you don't get the echo on the video.
Yeah, that was because the fair use usually comes up by itself, but I was sharing the screen.
Oh, okay.
But let me know if y'all still hear it though. So I'm gonna play this.
2017 and April 8th, 2024 total solar eclipses. Coincidence? Do you believe in coincidence? I no longer do. While praying the Lord's Prayer years ago, I was struck by the third petition, "Thy will be done." And I immediately recognized that it's not the will of the individual, but God's will that is sovereign. And I came to believe that coincidence doesn't exist, but that all is ordained by God. I challenge you to set aside doubt and view events through this lens. It's truly comforting to give oneself over to God's providence. Now, let's investigate an event that might otherwise be considered a coincidence. Those looking to the skies are aware of a total solar eclipse and a shadow that traversed the United States southeast from Oregon to South Carolina on August 21st, 2017. Just under 7 years later, on April 8th, 2024, North America will experience another total solar eclipse and a shadow that will traverse northeast from Mexico to New Brunswick and over the large island of Newfoundland. Interestingly, the two paths intersect in the Midwest of the United States. In Illinois, in the little town of Makanda, population 540, once referred to as the Star of Egypt, the central lines of totality will cross at 37 degrees, 38 minutes, 42.56 seconds north, and 89 degrees, 16 minutes, 31.66 seconds west. For the curious, please follow my description and you can generate an interactive map to see the point of intersection for yourself. Xavier Jubier, an IT manager whose avocation is eclipse prediction, has established a wonderful website with an array of eclipse resources. Utilizing information from NASA, and in particular, their eclipse expert, Fred Espenak, Jubier's site allows you to plot the 2017 and 2024 total solar eclipses on one interactive map, which you can zoom to a great extent. Point your browser to the following URL. On Xavier's homepage, select the link for 5 Millennium Canaan. Ensure that pop-ups are allowed as the website will populate a new page. You should now find yourself at the following URL. In the boxes from and to, enter the years 2017 and 2024 respectively, and select total in the pull-down menu for eclipse type. Now search the database. Off to the left, you'll see the results of the search with 5 eclipses matching the criteria. Now select both August 21st, 2017 and April 8th, 2024. Check Grouped Eclipses and select High in the pull-down menu for Level of Details. Build the interactive Google map. You will now be prompted to confirm you want both eclipses plotted on the same map. Select OK. After a few seconds, a third window will populate with a Google interactive map based upon the criteria you supplied. If all went well, you should find yourself at the following URL. You can now zoom in on the point of intersection to see its exact location as currently predicted. And I say currently predicted because Xavier Jouvier kindly emailed me that the intersection may move by up to 500 meters by the time of the actual 2024 event due to the delta T value related to Earth's rotational velocity. Note, though, the scale in the lower right to see that any deviation will be modest in terms of distance from the current intersection. Now pan slightly to the east to see that the intersection of the central lines of totality lies very near Salem Road in Makanda, Illinois. Some of you may already know that the path of totality of the 2017 eclipse on its way across the United States crossed over 7 places with Salem in their name. The prior graphic is courtesy of Chris C. at a blog by the name of crucify.com at the following URL. I highly recommend you head to Chris's blog and read his entry for August 13th, 2017, entitled The 7 Salems of the Eclipse. Coincidence? And no coincidence, Chris C. Clearly God's handiwork. Some may know that Salem is derivative of Jerusalem, one of the more important, if not the most important, locales in the Bible. In Psalm 76, verse 2, KJV, we read that Salem is used interchangeably for Jerusalem, as shown on this next slide. Verse 2, in Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. Jerusalem, of course, is the site of Jesus Christ's crucifixion and his resurrection, 2 events that alone define God's love for us, Jesus' ultimate sacrifice for the forgiveness of sin, and the promise of life eternal. Jerusalem is a place to always be remembered. As stated in Psalm 137, verses 5 through 6, KJV, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, if I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. So what does it all mean? I don't know. But I don't believe it's a coincidence that the intersection lies near Salem Road.
All right,
Any
so I'm gonna
more
stop it
than I
right there.
believe the revolution.
So it's absolutely not a coincidence. And what we're going to do, we're going to talk about what that actually means. Let me pull this up real quick here. We're going to talk about what does this mean? What is that? Right? What does this mean? This X that's intersecting in America. What does this mean? Can you brothers see that?
Yeah, I can speak.
Yeah, what you say, bro?
So August 21st, it crossed 2017. And in April 8th, 2024, it's going to cross. Is this a coincidence? What does this mean? Well, let's talk about this X first. When you think about an X, brother, what do you think about? Brothers, I want to ask you.
Signature, amount of years. A lot of times, X is represented by one putting there what they call a John Hancock, a signature, and also what does it represent? 10 or a certain particular number in the Greek language.
Yeah, I often think about like something being X'd out, something being deleted or removed. But I think, we understand what this actually means when we start to go back into who we are and kind of reclaim our language. It helps us to, further understand what this might mean from a biblical an Israelite perspective.
From a biblical and Israelite perspective. I'm glad you said that. So let's take a look at something real quick. All right. What would the Paleo Hebrew mean if it was an X? Let's see here. All right, so the Paleo Modern Hebrew alphabet. If you go down here, this X represents the Tav. All right. And what do we see right here? What does that say? Hold on. Sorry.
Does that say 400?
Let me move it up some. What does that say right there? What's next to that X?
400. I think you wrote that in there, Brother Bonnie. Did you write
400.
Let me see if I can find another one. Let's see if this one. So that it represents the top, right? And it's also represented by the numerical value of 400. It's not coming from salt of the earth. We didn't make this, but just as proof that we didn't make this, right? Hold on, let me pull something up. The Hebrew letter T. Can you see this?
Yeah, we can see it, bro.
We can see it.
See if I can enhance it for the people to see what it means. All right, hold on. I'm gonna have to shrink it a little bit so we can make sure the people can see it. All right,
that's good.
Tav Hebrew letter. As the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tav is equal to the number 400 and is symbolic of perfection. The word Tav means impression or mark. All right. So it says Tav alludes to the three essential services of soul. Teshuvah represent repentance, Tefillah, prayer, and Torah. All three of these words in the Hebrew begin with the letter Tav. All right. So is this a coincidence? Is this a coincidence that you have not only an X, but you also have the Hebrew word or letter that represents 400, which means completion or perfection, right? When you talk about completion or perfection, that's also completion, right? But let's take a look at something else. Let's take a look at some scripture. What does the Most High say concerning judgment on Babylon? Let's start with Isaiah. Isaiah 47. No, let's 47:6. The Most High says, I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thy hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And thou saidest, I should be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart. Neither didst thou remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasure, that dwelleth carelessly, that said in thy heart, I am, and none else besides me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things should come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They should come upon thee in their perfection. For the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thy enchantments. Is it a coincidence? Perfection. The Hebrew letter Tav, marked on the map representing 400, which symbolically means perfection. The Most High says he would bring destruction on this place, and they would come in their perfection. Why? Why? Because the Most High says he was wroth with his people, and he gave them over into their hands, and they showed them no mercy. Upon the ancient have they very heavily laid thy yoke, right? But then it also says, so thou didst not lay these things to heart, neither did thou remember the latter end of it. So let me ask you a question. What happened to Egypt when they touched the Most High people? What happened to Babylon when they touched the Most High people? What happened to Persia when they touched the Most High people? What happened to any kingdom that put their hands on the Most High's people? Were they not destroyed? But these people didn't even lay these things to the heart. Even if we wasn't the Most High's people, they didn't even consider the things that they were doing to us was wrong. The things that they did to our people was wrong. They don't consider that. They want to blot out the things that they did out of history. They want to stop these things from being taught in classrooms. They want to increase the sin of Israel. They want to magnify the iniquity of Israel. Let's go back to this map one more time. Let's look at this. Is it a coincidence? April 8, 2024. The things that have been are the things that shall be, and there's no new thing under the sun. When is the Passover, brother? When's the Passover? The Passover starts on the 31st of March and ends April the 6th, around the same time as the eclipse. Is that a coincidence? Are we imagining these things? 400. Brothers got anything to say about this?
Man, you dropped the mic with it, so I ain't going to nothing to add to it. Other than to say this one thing. The same thing happened in Egypt, that the Most High had an eclipse to come over the land. And the eclipse is a sign of certain catastrophes happening, or what it can actually lead to, which is said in like the book of Philo, when he talks about eclipses, like they represent the stars and what's going to happen in Earth as far as weather patterns, or what's going to happen in those seasons, and these things are written in the heavens. So these eclipses are actually written before they even come. That's why the heathen knows exactly when these eclipses are coming. And these eclipses bring, or these signs in the heavens also bring with them the type of weather that comes when the Most High brings certain judgments on the earth, or certain things that happen on the earth that we might call catastrophes.
This is where we are. This is where we at, Israel.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we have coming. But it's a coincidence for us to say that we are the people of the 400-year prophecy, that prophecy applies to us. All the biblical evidence, all the historical evidence outside of the Bible, because the Bible is a history book, all the secular evidence. You're not going to sit here and tell me there's not an agenda being pushed to try to hide this information. We set up in Bereans show and completely destroy all notions of it. They don't want to believe that. The 400-year prophecy is one of the main ways we prove that we are the people of the book. That's one of the main ways to prove it. They won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You can't get one scholar whether I don't care if he's Michael Brown or whoever, they would not debate us on this. They would not discuss it. Instead, they'll keep on pushing out these movies, these images like the Prince of Egypt, the Exodus with Christian Bell, Charleston Heston, the Ten Commandments, pushing 400 years in Egypt. Why? When all the scholars know and have said that they did not spend 400 years in Egypt. And sadly, we have brothers who have great biblical prowess also denying this. Denying that 400 years did not happen in Egypt and that it applies to us. So you telling me the Hebrew letter Tav don't represent 400 now? It's a coincidence that this is happening around the same time as the Passover, like it happened when our forefathers came out of Egypt. It's a coincidence that destruction is coming at a time of an eclipse. The Most High gave these things for signs. This is where we're at right now. This is what's coming for this nation. Brothers, I'm gonna mute my mic for a second. Take over.
All right, and while he's there, I just want to pinpoint some other things. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna share my screen, because what Brother Banya just did is he went through. Give me 1 second here. Here we go. He went through in Genesis, right? The reasons for the signs, right? The reasons that the Most High set up the skies, the sun, the moon, the stars. He kind of went through that and talked about how these things are for signs, not only seasons, but for signs. And when we talk about signs, we're also talking about signs for Israel, right? Signs that appear in the heavens. I just want to point out one of those other areas that we see. Now, I want to go over to Daniel 6, and this is where Daniel was being set up by some people who hated him. And King Darius makes, an exclamation here. And I'm going to just read from verse 25 and 26. But this kind of highlights some of the things that we're talking about today. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the Most High of Daniel. For he is the living Elohim and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who had delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this is a decree coming from King Darius, just explaining what the Most High, what he realizes the Most High is. And he's putting an exclamation point on this because Daniel, he realizes that Daniel is of the Most High. But one of the things he points out is that the Most High sets signs and wonders in the heavens for his people. Signs and wonders in the heavens when things are about to happen. Now, another thing, I'm going to go back to Isaiah 47, which Brother Banya also read. I'm going to share my screen again, excuse me. Hope everybody can see that. Can you see that, Brother Lasha? Brother Lasha, Brother Banya?
Yeah, I can see it, bro.
Oh, y'all can see it? Okay, great. All right. Now I want to, Brother Bonnier already went through this, but I want to go back to verse 9 and kind of put an exclamation point on what's being pointed out here. So in verse 9, we read, "But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection." Come upon thee in their perfection. So we're talking about two things: the loss of children and the loss of widowhood. Now, when we're talking about a nation losing these things, or these curses, if you will, coming upon a nation, what do we mean when we say the loss of children? Brother Lasha, you have any, what do we mean if we're saying a nation, this is going to come on you, the loss of children? What are some of the things we could be talking about concerning that nation?
Well, it was the same like what happened today in I believe Morocco, where an earthquake killed 1,300 people, at least as of the last reporting I saw. You talk about the loss of children. You're talking about death. You're talking about destruction. You're even talking about the losing of a kingdom. Now, this is not to say that we're dating our deliverance, but that the eclipse represents a sign that cannot be ignored of our deliverance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brother Barney, you back?
I would say that it represents the loss of physical children, but also seeing that this is in regards to the destruction of the place and deliverance of our people. I would say the loss of a future.
There you go. There you go. And that's
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro.
Now I was going to just say the loss of a future or any hopes of recovery.
Absolutely. The loss of your future, the loss of your inheritance, right? The loss of anything that you can pass on. You have nothing. Everything is dead. You have nothing to pass on. When we talk about widowhood, the being placed into widowhood, but you brothers have any idea what that could be talking about?
Brother Elisha, you can go.
Yeah, I actually was grabbing something else I want to read while we're on the subject, just to to add to it. But when we're talking about widowhood, we're talking about when somebody loses a chief partner or a chief kingdom, at least in that context. Widowhood. We're talking about mourning, because what does a widow do? She mourns of loss, and we're talking about the man representing posterity or the kingdom of that nation. So that's what we're talking about, widowhood, the overthrowing of a nation and that posterity.
Right. Exactly. The loss of your strength, the loss of your power. The father of your household is gone. As a nation, your strength is gone, and your inheritance, your future is gone. And these are the things that this prophecy is talking about. This is what's going to be lost. Now we've seen that, all of us have been, checking up on the news recently. We see how America is sinking. The United States is going under. We see how the dollars get, being devalued. We see how our influence over the world and being able to police the world is diminishing, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, another thing that I want to point out before I kind of land my plane is someone will hear this. Someone will hear what we're saying and think we're saying, "Oh my gosh, come what is that? Come April 2024, we're going home. Come April 2024, the nukes are going to be hitting the United States." We're not saying any of that. We're not saying any of that. What we are saying is that eclipse of the X, shows that the Most High is still interested in his people. What we see happening in the news today, and this prophecy right here, is proof, if we believe prophecy and we believe the Bible, that this nation is going to suffer for what it did to God's people. the Most High's people, excuse me. Do we know what that will look like? We have an idea what it will look like because of what we see here in verse 9, but we don't exactly know exactly what it's going to look like. So we're not making any predictions saying, pack your bags, we're ready to go. April 2024, we're ready to go. But we are telling you that this is not a coincidence, that this sign of that eclipse, this X over the United States, means more than people generally want to admit.
I want to add something.
Before we don't move on, we want to read one more thing out of the book of Philo. Go ahead, bro.
I want to add something. Our elder brother Cleo, he may be watching in the background. I'm asking permission to say this. If brother Cleo was here, he'd say that means Israel get out of the way. Get out of the way. Walk circumspect, Israel.
Look, I'm gonna share my screen real quick, and just real quick, if you go in the book of Josephus, it talks about during the death of Herod. I mean, we read this a couple of days ago when we was just fellowshipping. We talked about all the suffering that happened to Herod before he died. Remember that?
Yeah,
brothers.
Yeah, I remember.
Now, there was an eclipse that happened when Herod died, really marking his death. An eclipse happened when Herod died after all his suffering. The Most High sealed it with an eclipse, the same way when our fathers allowed the Mashiach to be put up on the tree, and you see that the temple was written, it was eclipse in the land. And we're going to read something out of Philo. I'm going to share my screen real quick that addresses this subject with everything the brothers have said, and on the same temperament of the direction we're on right now. Let's see. So we're going to start right here, and it's the 988th page of the book Philo. So we'll just start right here and read down. And it says, there also another thing. Matter of fact, let me highlight it so y'all can know exactly where we're at, and maybe I can expand it a little bit.
Yeah, if you can make it a little bit more bigger, that'd be great if you can.
All right. One thing I don't like about expanding this thing, it always does that. That's why. So now you can't see Jack. All right, maybe we can see it like this.
That's what it looks like. There we go.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
all right. So there's also another thing. Go ahead, brother. What'd you say?
No, I'm good.
All right. There is also another thing which does not happen through the intention of him who made it. And what is this? The shadows which fall from the feet indicate the hours to our experience. And again, fire is a most important work of nature, but the consequence of fire is smoke. And nevertheless, even that too at times is of some service. At all events, in the heat, in the middle of the day, when the fire is rendered invisible by the brilliancy of the beams of the sun, the approach of enemies is indicated by the smoke. And the principle which causes the rainbow is also the same which in some degree regulates eclipses. For eclipses are a natural consequence of the rules which regulate the divine natures of the sun and moon, and they are indications either of the impending death of some king or of the destruction of some city. I'm going to read that again. For eclipses are a natural consequence of the rules which regulate the divine natures of the sun and moon, and they are indications either of the impending death of some king or of the destruction of some city, as Pindar also has told us in enigmatical terms, alluding to such events as the consequences of the omens which we have now been mentioning. Let's go down real quick. Let's see. I think I went up too far. Let me see. Let me put that lower. All right, here we go. All right. And it says, and the circle of the Milky Way partakes of the same natural essences with the other stars, because these stars, prior to even getting an eclipse, is going to be some type of sign in the stars. And we talked about that earlier about Abraham, how he was able to look at things in a astronomical way, and he can see the great year which was represented after 600 years. Oddly enough, Brother Banya, when he gave those dates of August 2017 to April of 2024, is actually a 6-year time frame. It's a 6-year time frame, or 6 years and some change, but it's still within a 6-year window, showing that astronomical anomalies, or whatever you want to call them, happened within a 6 time frame, the same way with creation. The 6 days the Most High created the heavens and earth, and then he rested. The same way from August 2017 to April 2024 would represent 6 years and some change, or 6 year and a half. It's still a 6-year time frame. And it says, but merely the fact that it is hard to account for, and no reason that those who are accustomed to investigate the principles of nature should shrink from examining into it. For the discovery of those things is most beneficial, and the investigation of them is intrinsically most delightful for its own sake to those who are fond of learning. So these things we should be learning. These things we should be aware of. We should have an understanding. Not talking about which woman to date. I shouldn't be asking if you're a Leo or a Capricorn. That's not the astrological learning we should be doing. But it's as to the will of the Most High. And as the brothers have articulated about this eclipse that's coming next year near the Passover, and how even our fathers understood that it meant some death of a king, or some incoming doom of a city, or some fall of a nation, or widowhood, or some nation that thinks that they sit as a maid and no man stands beside them. All these things are signs of what the Most High is going to do on the earth. To what degree, we don't know, but we know that it's not insignificant, and it's not by consequence. And I think that has been, thoroughly shown here today. So let me get out of there.
Signs and wonders. That's what we see in regards to prophecy and what our people are going through. You see signs and wonders, right? We see prophecy everywhere, but we're fulfilling prophecy on the side of being his children, and then there's another people fulfilling prophecy on the side of being the children of the devil. The brother C Cleo, he shared an article with us that I want to share with y'all also. Just to delve up into something else real quick, just to change the topic a little bit, because if you know Salt of the Earth, we got something to say about the Transformers, the Decepticons, there's no more than meets the eye with these people, but they are Decepticons. Let's check this out. Let's check out this article that the brother sent us concerning what the president of Palestine had to say about their origin and where they come from. Because everybody's got something to say about who we are. Everybody want to tell us who we are, and you not this, and you ain't that, and you ain't, let's be honest. What they want to say is, nigga, you ain't nobody. Nigga, you ain't special. Nigga, you ain't important. Negro, please. That's what they want to say. Even within the Christian church and within our own people that deny who we are. It don't matter if the words jump off the page and show them who we are, right? But let's talk about who these other people are for a brief moment, because we got prophecy backing who we are. Even the stars in the heavens are screaming out who we are. But let's take a look at who these other people are and what's starting to be revealed. Right? So I'm going to pull up this article that the brother Cleo sent us. right? And it was written in the Times of Israel. It's newspaper article. So you don't fault us. All right. Salt of the earth brings up anti-Semitic tropes, right? And it says Abbas says Ashkenazi Jews are not Semites. Hitler killed them for their social role, right? So, I mean, what's been said, according to the people that's stomping grounds out here, the Christians, and, according to those who have generous things to say concerning what happened in the Holocaust, is that Hitler did these things to these people because they were Jewish. But let's see what it says here. It says, this is the Palestinian president also. So it says, in a recent speech, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas repeated a number of anti-Semitic canards he has made over the years, including unfounded claims about the origin of Ashkenazi Jews, and that Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler had Jews slaughtered because of their social role as moneylenders and not because of enmity towards Judaism. Speaking last month at his Fatah Party Revolutionary Council, Abbas outlined the baseless theory that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from ancient Israelites, but an ancient Turkish people known as Khazars, who, according to a discredited theory, converted to Judaism in masses. What's that? Let me ask you, brothers, what do you think that discredited theory was?
The theory was that Ashkenazi Jews are descendants of Khazars and their converts.
Well, whose theory was that?
It was written in several books. That what is the Invention of the Jewish People by Shalom Hossein, the 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, and countless others seem to understand this is not a baseless claim, but for some reason, this person who wrote this article think this is just gibberish.
It's baseless, though. Their own people are telling you that we're not Shemites. We're not ancient. We don't descend from the ancient Israelites, right? Let me finish. Said the truth that we should clarify to the world is that European Jews are not Semites, Abbas said. According to the translation of his remarks by the Middle East Media Research Institute, they have nothing to do with Semitism. So when we hear them talk about Semitism and anti-Semitism, the Ashkenazi Jews at least are not Semites, he added. Abbas has previously claimed publicly that Ashkenazi Jews are the descendants of Khazars, including a 2018 speech in which he charged that Jews' social behavior caused the Holocaust, another assertion he reiterated in his recent speech. Let me continue reading. They say that Hitler killed the Jews because they were Jews, and that Europe hated the Jews because they were Jews. Not true. It was clearly explained that the Europeans fought the Jews because of their social role and not their religion. Abbas said in August. Several authorities wrote about this. Even Karl Marx said this was not true. He said that the enmity was not directed at Judaism as a religion, but to Judaism for its social role. The Europeans fought against these people because of their role in society, which had to do with usury, money, and so on and so forth, he continued. Now, it also included things like pornography, like I'm going to say this. It also included things like pornography and social degradation that brought into play, which was one of the reasons why Germany was in the first place to want to kick those people out of their land. Right? I'm saying that. All right. Now it says Abbas then appeared to repeat the stab in the back myth that Hitler subscribed to after World War I, blaming the Jews and others for Germany's loss in the conflict. So I'm gonna stop right there. You brothers have anything to add?
Nah, man, I got nothing to add to that. I'm glad you added that. You added the pornography in there.
Yeah, they were doing all kinds of things that were social degrading the social structure of Germany also.
Absolutely.
There were also things that they would these same reasons were why that wasn't the first place that expelled those people.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the first place to do that. And then when we talk about, a lot of different other things that came up, it just shows you that, who's really wielding a hand of manipulation. Brother Elisha, I know you have some things you might want to share on that.
I mean, as far as the topic goes, that they come from King Bulan and the Khazars. I mean, this should be like common knowledge at this point. Just like adding Hershey chocolate to milk is going to make it chocolate milk. It shouldn't be any ambiguity there. We did discuss some of their practices that's not exactly Torah. One for which we can call, and I want to pronounce it right, because they always seem to butcher our language to where we can't even read our own language after they get done with putting the Yiddish twist on it. But we're going to bring this up real quick. And give me 1 second. Here we go. It's called. Matter of fact, do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if it's necessary, but all right. All right, go on. Yeah, they have practices not according to Torah. One we would say is that the woman dictates the nation. That whoever is can y'all see my screen?
Yeah, you can see it, bro.
That the woman dictates the nation. So whoever procreates with a Jewish woman is now a Jew or Jewish, and it's not about the man's seed and the man determining what the posterity is and what nation is. But they also have this tradition called Metzitza Vepe. I believe that's how it is. And it's called direct oral suctioning. Now, we know the law speaks against the transmission of blood. Blood makes you unclean. The law also speaks against homosexuality. We also know in the law that when you go to circumcise children, that you use a sharp tool and not your teeth. So we have years ago where it was rampant in the Jewish community that they were performing this Metzitza Bepe, and little children, when actually little babies, were catching transsexual, diseases or sexual diseases because the so-called rabbis that had herpes were passing them to the babies, and some of the babies actually died. So what is this process? It says when a baby is circumcised, some ritual Jewish circumcisers, believe it or not, this would also be confirmation that they run this country, because I don't know of any other nation within the states will allow a foreign nation to come in and to have a cultural procedure where one puts his mouth on a baby's penile region, and this is not criminal, or this is not forbidden, at least coming into another person's land. So we know they run this land alone, just by being able to lawfully, in their eyes, keep this practice. But it says, do a practice called mitzitza bepe, is when the mohel uses their mouth to suck blood away from the baby's circumcision wound as part of the circumcision ritual. After mitzvah bepe, some babies can get an infection. Some of these infections, if we go down, it says public health experts have found that, let me just bring that up a little more, have found that this procedure, I don't not keep pronouncing that name, but we'll just let y'all play with it. It says, can put babies at risk of getting a harmful virus called herpes, simplex virus type 1, or HSV1. Some of these babies become seriously ill. Some develop brain damage, and others have died. There is no proven way to eliminate the risk of HSV1 infection from direct oral suctioning. And then listen, we're not going to be cute with the word suctioning. We're talking about sucking. They're sucking on the child's penile region. I don't like the suctioning part does not make it, more socially accepted because they use the word suctioning. Though there are options to reduce the risk. Now, why would we look for a risk or option to reduce the risk of another man putting his mouth on a baby's penile region to circumcise with his teeth and then to suck the blood from it? And for those who religiously choose to adopt Judaism, how do you stand to the side and let this mohel take your infant and put his mouth on the pubic area? How many ways is this a violation of the Torah? One, that blood makes you unclean, especially for somebody who is not allowed to become unclean, being a priest for somebody else's child outside of their parents. Another thing is the contact with another person's genitalia. Like, how is this even accepted in their community? How is this biblical? This is one of the ways that, this is some of the things they must have did in Khazaria and decided to make it a practice within the covenants that the Most High gave us. Because I surely wouldn't say that we practice a religion. So in their religion, wherever they got this from, it surely wasn't from the manuscript. It wasn't from the Bible. And how it was accepted in America, I'll never understand that. Not that I'm shocked by that Esau will make provision for his own, but that they're using this to be identified as this is a cultural thing that has been passed down. Where in the Bible do you see it? Where in the Torah has anybody done this? When Moses' wife's Zipporah circumcised Moses' children, she took a sharp rock. So where did they get this from? How can you raise your voice at your kid and go to prison, but some mohel can put his mouth on a kid, pass him herpes, kid can die, get sick, and nothing happens to them unless they're the ones who run this nation? What iniquity did they search out to come up with this? I haven't heard about this in no other culture in history. There are other cultures that circumcise. Even the ancient Egyptians, some of them used to circumcise. There's other nations that circumcise babies. They're the only ones that say, "No, what? Use your teeth." What is this? What is the spiritual significance of putting your mouth on a penile region? What is the spiritual significance of sucking blood? You know why? Because they do eat blood. Blood is the chief ceremonial importance to any rites or ceremony using blood of animals, blood of people. Are they passing through having your child to pass through the fire to Molech, sucking on the blood of your child, or sucking on doing what they're doing to him? So these are some of the things that the synagogue Satan would do. And this is not just to come at these Ish people. This is talking about the direct act of having something called direct oral suctioning, knowing that this thing is killing babies, and the fact that a grown man, supposedly a religious teacher, has a practice of putting his mouth on a little kid, and no police are showing up, no feds, no mass incarceration, no villainization, nothing. And believe it or not, you know where this information comes from? I don't know if y'all check this out. This comes from the nyc.gov website. This is the government that's telling you that they can do this. Not criminalizing it, but trying to give them means to help lower the sexual transmission of diseases to children. This is what you're telling the priest, or this mohill has to get a mouth condom to perform this procedure. He gets some peroxide or something. They have some ways that they can lessen the transmission of disease to these children to accommodate these ish people. If this practice alone should say who runs this country and who the daughter of Babylon is, who is spiritually Sodom in Egypt, who is crucifying the Mashiach afresh every day. You brothers want to say anything to this?
Oh, what else? What the other thing that this practice does is it solidifies, right? The how can I say this? The word that's coming to my head is just the taking something like circumcision, which is a covenant starting given to Abraham for the people, for Israelites, right? Or well, not Israelites when Israelites didn't come about until Jacob, but a covenant given to Abraham to show that you are part of his people, right? Everyone must be circumcised, right? Nowhere in scripture, like you said, Brother Elijah, do we ever see anything that says you are to use anything other than a sharp knife. These people have taken scripture, taken our covenant, our laws, our statutes, our commandments, and they bastardized them. They turned them into something that's utterly repulsive. I mean, to even think of something like this, is utterly repulsive. And it's even more repulsive to me that they've taken a covenant of the Most High and turned it into something this disgusting.
I want to know why this practice is not repeatedly on some network broadcast station. Why some Edomite doesn't take this as a cause against this practice and these people. They take up causes against our people, the rap music and the nightlife. They'll take up causes like that. Nobody in this country has taken up the cause on this practice. It's not even talked about. We can forget about it. Like a lot of times we see these ish people and we don't even raise this as the greatest contention against them because it's actually something that we don't a lot of times get a chance to think about because nobody else is worrying about it. They talk about us being gangbangers and drug dealers and all these things. These things are in every movie. I ain't seen no movie where they highlighted the fact that these people are no different than the pedophiles in the Catholic Church. The two highest churches on earth practice some form of pedophilia. The Catholic Church running around chasing little boys to the end of the earth. And the so-called Ish religion make sure they get not only the blood, but they perform some pedophilic act on a child and then say it's culture. So if we had a culture of doing something heinous like that, like say circumcising dogs, we'd be in prison. We'd be under the jail. If we had a custom of circumcising dogs, because we circumcise ourselves, we want to circumcise the dogs. The animal rights people, the ASPCA, will be all over us. Somebody would champion a cause against us just by performing circumcision on an animal, let alone putting your mouth on I don't even want to keep repeating that, but the process that we talked about. So these things have gone up like a smoke to the heavens. Like these evils, these abominations, these signs, like the signs that we're the Israelites are scriptural. They're, prophetic. The signs that they're not the Israelites is practices like mitzvah, practices of wearing all black, running around, banging your head against the welling wall. Like the practices that they're not the people are almost as profound as the prophecies that say we are the people. The prophecies or the signs that they're not the people It's so apparent, so clear. Women that dictate the nation, their practice of circumcision, they run around in top hats looking like morticians when the scripture says they're dressing all white. Everything they do is a complete contradiction of what the scripture says. It's so profound or so clear and prominent that they're not the people by the signs that they put on themselves outside of just dwelling in the land and supposedly keeping the Sabbath day. But the signs on us that make us the people and show that we're the people should be the same signs that prove that they're not. If anybody on this earth should be disqualified from being the people, it should be them. It should be a straight up disqualification with practices like that. Oh, y'all bad. Y'all is disqualified. Get out of here. Something next. Somebody else step up. Ishmael, what you got to say? The next nation should just step up, man. We're not competing with nobody of a nation that is that clear that they have no ties to the historical Israelites, especially the way these people show that they have no dealings. Their whole purpose is usury and money, destruction, entertaining people with horror movies, and the type of music they endorse amongst our people. All the things that they endorse would shouldn't disqualify them as being any type of spiritual people. And that's just how I feel about it. I'm sure a lot of us feel the same.
You had some letters from Pontius Pilate too that we wanted to go through. Because because you mentioned the Wailing Wall, right?
Right. Yeah, but that's a search as far as the Wailing Wall goes. And we were talking about that the Jewish people actually celebrate Harad. I mean, I've seen it's a festival. I believe if you go through YouTube, that you might be able to find a festival that some Jewish people honor Harad. And Harad is the one who built the west side, particularly of or the west side of the temple, or the new temple that he built in his time, that the Jewish people to this day go and pray to. It's called the Wailing Wall. And this is the last part, supposedly, of the temple Harad had built. Which, the fact that our people hated Harad, which, we go into the letters of Pontius Pilate, you'll see that they hated Harad. Even Josephus, it's not even hard to get to the information that how much we hated Harad. Like, we hate him. We wouldn't have revered anything he does. But oddly enough, Harad being the Edomite, and these Ish people are Edomites as well. In a lot of ways, they revere him. In a lot of ways, there's respect there for some of the things Harad had done. So I'm gonna grab up this letters of Pontius Pilate, which kind of give a description of our people and how we operated socially and politically. And we can even say religiously in some ways. So let me pull this up. Hey, brother, you can holler at the people. I grab this up for the people.
Yo, brother Najee, man, I'm interested in hearing your perspective on what we just heard.
Yeah, I just kind of, gave part of that. Like how, I'll say it again, like how they've taken something that as the covenant, a covenant between the Most High and his people, and just turned it into, just bastardized it and just turned it into something that's totally disgusting. It's totally, absolutely disgusting. And like Brother Elisha said, man, there's no penalty. There's no penalty for these people to do these types of things. I'm kind of at a loss for words. I'll be honest, man. This is so repulsive and just straight up disgusting, man. I'm kind of like,
it's like monstrous. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's and I hate to say this might sound a little crazy, but it sounds like something they would do to our people.
Yeah, it does.
It just sounds it's almost shocking to me, on top of how disgusting it is, that they're actually doing it to their own children.
Well, they was eating our people, the delectable Negro and all that. So it's not much of a surprise to me that they would take the foreskin of their babies and eat that, and suck blood out of there. What's interesting is that the level of protection that they have. Even though that infants have died from this, I mean, at some level you would expect to see some type of backlash concerning that, but like they receive protection to continue doing it. And it's like, okay, you're giving infants, babies, herpes, and it's killing them, giving them brain damage. You would think that the mothers or the parents of the children would have something. There would be some kind of an outcry, right? We're not seeing any of that. It's just like that. It was swept under the rug. I wouldn't be surprised if they killed the parents too. Got rid of them. And
yeah, man.
Because just the level of silence on it is ridiculous. But when you turn around and you see things like I was watching this with this one Jewish guy, Ben Sharpio. He had a big fuss about the Black national anthem being sung at the Super Bowl. And I don't really care about what he got to say, man. But I was so infuriated to see the comment board, how everybody had something to say about what our people believe, and it's like, that song was written in the 90s. Y'all got a big problem with our people singing that song and talking about we don't want segregation and we don't want racism, but we sing that song. I'm like, that was written in the 1900s, and even so, like, it ain't like the racism stopped.
Right.
All that did was for it allowed people to have an opportunity to voice how racist and how much they hate our people. Like, you hate us so much, then like, why don't y'all let us go?
Right.
But it's like, you don't want to let us go because you're afraid that we're going to grow into something and you're going to have to face the consequences of what you did one day.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy, like how some of our people also join in with the fray. And they about to say some BS, right? When they say I'm black, but I'm an African American, but I disagree. Well, who the hell cares? Like, why are you caping for them, man? Like, why do you care about what they think about you? Like, do you think that's gonna give you some points? Like, come on, man. When the time comes, they're gonna show you they feel the same way about you that the other one just outright saying it for.
Right.
It's crazy. You got Christians on one side doing it, and you got just regular old folk just acting like, oh, I'm not black. I'm black, but I don't agree with that. Who cares if you agree with it? Why are you saying that for? If you don't agree with it, just shut up. Don't say nothing.
Exactly.
But you got something you want to prove to them. I'm not like those other Negroes, boss. I'm not like them, sir. Master, I don't agree with that. And the same thing with the Christian, with the Christian church and with brothers and sisters that claim Israel and want to be Christians. I'm not like them, those Israelites over there, sir. I'm not like those Israelites, master. I'm a Christian. I'm just like you white Christians.
Yep.
And that's like, it's normal for them people to hate us. They hate us. It's self-preservation because they're gonna get destroyed. But for our people, man, to go and do that, man, it's despicable to me, man. It's despicable. You got all this stuff to say about the Israelite community, and then it's just crickets. When you talking about these dudes putting their mouth on the penile region of a child, of an infant. Like me, I don't really care about what happens to nations, bro. But I always view babies and infants as innocent, no matter what ethnicity they are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what ethnicity, unless the Most High say slaughter them, then we do what the Most High said.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
but generally, our people are compassionate people. You know, but it's like when we commit bad, then it's all of us.
Yep.
All these black people over there, all them criminals. But then when somebody does something good, oh, he was the exception. When a father takes care of his children, oh, that was an exception. When a sister's modest, oh, she's the exception. You know, all of them not like that. All of them bad though. All of them criminals. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they take key figures that look like us and turn them and make them look like them. Mashiach. Turn him to a white man. Moses, turn him to the white man.
Yeah.
Noah, turn him into a white man. Enoch, turn him to a white man. Right? Take all our important figures. I guarantee you, man, 70, 80 years down the line, they do a movie about Martin Luther King, he'll be white.
No doubt.
That's why they're trying to scrub all the history. Don't talk about black history. So they can come and say, oh, yeah, somebody dig up this guy. Who's this guy, Martin Luther King? Who was that? Oh, it's a white guy that did all this and he made sure, you know. There was no, you know, everybody came here. The immigrants, the black immigrants came here and they never wanted to work, you know. They had to force them to work because they was eating and surviving off society and everybody was taking it, so we had to turn them into slaves to make them work. And we didn't turn them; they offered to be slaves. So we said, "Okay, you guys can be slaves if you want to stay here." And that's why other nations come to this place and just completely disrespect our people. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro. You can go.
Yeah,
Yeah, brother.
Brother, you.
No, brother Lasha, I was giving you the floor, bro.
Okay. Now we're just going to go over some citations inside this book that called "The Letters of Pontius Pilate," and we're only going through it for like an historical perspective, how it describes our people, man, and some of the things that we understood at that time. So, and you can see that this type of psychology or the mindset in our people today, how we operate, you can see in how he gives an account in these letters. And one of them that I did highlight was right here. It says they are intelligent and subtle, industrious and tenacious. They can split a hair with the most learned and steal a march with the most cunning. Now, you need not be afraid. I shall not underrate them. So he says they can split a hair with the most learned. Man, like we will argue, especially, I mean, I'll give it, our women are very, very good at this too. Arguing to the very letter if you misquote a thing that our people say. Argue to the letter. And it said they can still a march with the most cunning, knowing that our people we're known for these things. Let's go to another place in here. It says, do you brothers want to address that?
Sound like us to the T.
All right, so it says here, even though we definitely got away from this, it says they will not mix, they are a race apart. They will not sacrifice to the gods or to Caesar, and they claim all sorts of privileges, which our people, man, even when you know that you're an Israelite, you don't want to mix with anybody. We're very stringent on those things. But over time, our people have become enamored with the nations and also procreating with them, even though I say we do it less than anybody else. It says they will not sacrifice to the gods of Caesar, and they claim all sorts of privileges, as in we refuse to keep their religion, but we're going to claim the privileges of ours. Let's see. It says, I shall not interfere with their religion, their priests in their temple. Have I heard? It says, and you have, and you know much. Not so also heard that with a Jew religion comes a very near to politics. And our religion, what they would call our religion, is a constitution. Our religion is more political as a political constitution than we would say a religious practice that Christians or Muslims keep. Our religion is deeply connected to our politics because we're instructed militarily through our laws. Y'all agree with that, brothers? Y'all agree with that statement?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
All right, we're going to scroll down. There's a part in here where he talks about Africa. And it just gives some insight. I think it's right here. He says, it says, why not, says Valerius, I did saying myself. He says, but in 6 months you must restore the 10%, and in 12 months put another to the 10th on that. He told me also that I should also by all means encourage the Jews who throng in Jerusalem and from Asia and Africa at the time of the great festivals, especially the Passover. Now he specifically mentions Asia and Africa. Now, why would he distinctly point them out? You know, there's never been a time in history that Africa wasn't a place where mainly black people resided. But it was known that our people came up from Asia and Africa. And some people say the Northern Kingdom went further into Asia, particularly in Asia Minor. That's why Paul made a lot of his travels there. But it says, so as long as Caesar maintains peace in the provinces, the Jews flourish. They travel in tens of thousands to Judea, carrying their money with them. We know, according to the law, if you couldn't bring your flocks up there, you would actually sell them, and you would come with the money, and then you can repurchase whatever you were going to bring for offering to the Most High, according to the law. Whatever you're going to bring according to the to Deuteronomy, I believe, chapter 12. If you your tithes, your peace offerings, everything that you were bringing, you would bring your money if you couldn't make the travel with your oxen and sheep and goats. And then when you got to the land, you didn't just give money, you would just repurchase those oxen, those sheep, those goats, and then you would do the ceremony. But a lot of our people came in the tens of thousands to Judea. And we're talking about they're coming from Asia and Africa, even as far back as the time that Yeshua or Jesus lived, or Yeshua. Or Yeshai. So that even showing then that we came from a continent, or a lot of times we end up migrating to continents where other people had color, and we considered black. I mean, this is just the accounts of Pontius Pilate, like what, his political position in dealing with our people. So we're going to go to the next page. It goes, let's see. I'm going to go down to this paragraph right here. It says, I got it highlighted here, so I got to find it on here. But here we go. It says, their noble priestly families, as arrogant a crew as can be found in Asia, ruled the whole country before the time of Herod. Herod destroyed their power and almost destroyed them. Now they have raised their heads again. We have given them back much to their authority, especially in regard to their religion. In order to keep it, they are steady to tolerate us. They do not want another Herod to sweep them aside and send them to the execution, which Herod was known for. And that's why we bring up Herod in the sense that the modern Jewish state, they actually have a ceremony every year that they actually honor Herod. According to Pontius Pilate in these letters, the history, our people hated Herod. And we're going to get to a particular part where it talks about how much our people hated Herod. Now, this book is pretty lengthy, so bear with me. All right, matter of fact, here's a good part right here. Let's scroll down. And this will remind us of our communities today, how we operate. We know white people don't operate like this. Let's see. Here we go, right here. We'll just start at the top. It says, now at last I can describe the Jewish disputation. Obviously, Jewish wouldn't be there. It says it was a bigger affair than I had expected, but then the Jews in Alexandria are much more. Now, our people, I mentioned this some time ago. It came a time where there were only two types of people in Alexandria, Egypt. That was Greeks and Jews. And then it got to the point where there were nothing but Jews in Alexandria. Alexandria was a strict inhabitant of our people. Like, we ran Egypt. We operated there. And then we can see that this is partly true even at the time of the Mashiach. So let's continue. It says, Jews in Alexandria are much more important than I had supposed. There is a Jewish settlement which they say occupies nearly half the city. I know that on the day before the disputation came, I drove. It says, and I drove. It says, came, I drove. How about says I drove? Should say I drove. And drove always the people, and the place cards and the shop signs were Jewish. It says, everywhere children and everywhere aged gray hair, gray beards, grave or taken with animation in the streets. I have never seen so many old men. Do they ever die? I wonder. Or is it only the one notices them more because they are so different? What does he mean they're so different? That they're inside the streets. It says grave talking with animation. They're loud and boisterous. Their children and their old people are in the streets. You know how you see our people in the cities and the hoods out there playing cards, doing block parties. Mm-hmm. Like, we're a communal people. And this is what he's describing when he talks about how our people operated at this time. It says everywhere children, everywhere age gray beards, grave, and it says grave or talking with animation in the streets, meaning they're loud and, maybe somewhat flamboyant, which is a trait that our people have. No nation operates like that, like us. What do y'all brothers think?
Yo, that's spot on. Spot on. You know what though? What'd you say? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go first.
No, I was just going to continue, but if you got something to say, go ahead.
No, continue.
All right, so we're going to scroll down even more, and it's a lot of good history in here. Like, when I first read this book, I thought it was going to have a more of a religious context to it, but it actually doesn't. It's more just historical information. Now, you notice that we read about Philo a lot, and then in this book it actually brings up Philo. It says the Jews, of course. Let's start right here. I don't know if y'all can see. Make sure y'all can see it. It says the Jews, of course, resented. Philo proposed that since Judea had behaved so well during Valerius' term of office, I should restore the vestments of the high priest. I answered coldly, and the Jews must earn any concession by good behavior shown to me, that I knew Caesar's mind and should carry it out, that I had every intention of allowing the Jews the full exercise of their religion, provided that they recognize in every proper manner the authority of Caesar. And the question of the vestments I said was one which only Caesar could decide. And I was talking about the vestments of the high priest. But this is similar how our people operate in the land today. Our people got permanent residency status inside the land of Jerusalem under the Jewish occupation or government. And we can only reside there if our children are enlisted in the Jewish military or the Israeli military when they get of age to do so. This is an agreement our people made just to stay in the land, like in Dimona and different places. And you can see, like, life imitates art. These things in some way, shape, or form are continuing on. When in any point were the heathen ever made subordinate to the point where they had to make such concessions?
Never.
We continue. It says, even talk about how they set a golden eagle at the gate. We have to go in there. We're going to keep scrolling. We're going to go to the next page. And it says, let's see. All right, where are we at? Here we go. This is, I believe, is talking about Herod, how our people felt. It says, I was astonished to hear, like that. It says, I was astonished to hear a harsh voice near me say, a great murderer. And there, if you please, was my humble Alexander, which was somebody that was a Jew that was sent to be with, Pontius Pilate, I guess, to help him be, acquainted with the land. I guess, and reluctantly he did that, with a scowl on his face and a snarl in his voice, looking as though he hated, as I am sure he does, even the stones that Herod had set up. Now that's an interesting statement. The temple that Herod built was hated by our people that was in the land. The people was in the land. It says that, and we'll read that again. It says, looking as though he hated, and I am sure he does, even the stones that Herod had set up. Now, the Jewish people to this day is still at that Wailing Wall, honoring it as some old holy site, some ancient holy site. But according to Pontius Pilate, the Jews, or our people in the land at that time, hated the very stones that Herod has set up. Why would the Jews now revere that place, even throwing a parade for Herod, some of their sects? Why are they still going there? Why are people still going to the Wailing Wall, a wall that was set up by Herod, as if they're honoring the one who had oppressed and murdered our people, even prophetically, when it talks about Rachel mourning inside the prophets? It says he was a Jew himself. Now look at how it's responded by Alexander, the real Jew. This is Pontius Pilate saying he was a Jew himself. So why would he hate the walls of the bricks set up? He says, I said in order to tease Alexander. So he says this to antagonize Alexander, who was a real Jew. I knew that Herod was only half Jew. No, he wasn't half nothing. He was half. Man, I don't even go to, but being of the race of the Idumeans. And I suppose that if there were any persons whom the Jews hate more than pure Romans and Greeks, it is people who are part Jew, like Idumeans and Samaritans. We can even see that in our people right now, where we're still battling with vehement force about certain people not being Israelites. Like, we take that as a complete slight and smack in the face. A lot of arguments are raised right now about how serious we are about people pretending to be Jews and they're not. Anybody want to address that portion right there? You brothers good? I'm assuming that means yes. All right. We're going to scroll down. Let's see. Grab up this part right here.
I don't know how many times I'm gonna be saying something and I got the mute on.
Oh, all right, go ahead, bro.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, family. All right, it says, and we're going to start right here. It says, in Cepheus and I understood each other, I think, but I shall need to watch them. Now, if you want to get this book, you can download the PDF. It says, the position is extraordinary. I wish that you were here to study. As I look from the palace, I see below me this town, which apart from Jews is full of Greeks, Egyptians, and the rest. Away to the south is a strip of plain along the sea. Behind it are foothills, then rising behind them, a barrier of mountains, bare and rugged, among which dwell the real Jews, stiff-necked and obstinate. If that doesn't have a picture of us, I don't know what is. But there's a distinction being made. It says the real Jews. So we see right now that we have people that's obviously operating as Jews religiously in the land, chiefly coming from the Idumeans and the Romans. Full Greeks, Egyptians. But it says, behind it are foothills of them, rising behind them, a barrier of mountains. Now, who lived in the mountains? We know that the Essenes lived in the mountains, where we get the Dead Sea Scrolls. I believe this the Essenes. Was it the Essenes, right, that were in the mountains, that they found the Qumran caves? I believe it was the Essenes. And bare and rugged. It says, among which dwell the real Jews, stiff-necked and obstinate. So as they started to overrun Jerusalem, our people started to move further and further into the mountains. They are surrounded by enemies, Samaritans to the north, Idumeans to the south, Romans at the points of military vantage, and Greeks everywhere. And they do not desire to have them other than enemies. We preferred it that way. The very troops and the auxiliaries by which we hold them down are recruited from these enemies on their own soil, for they themselves will not serve in the army, and we, wrongfully, as I think, exempt them. They shut themselves up in their Jerusalem, and still more in their temple, unchanging, and at heart unyielding. I had no letter from you, my friends, since I came here. Take heed, I shall not write again until I hear from you. Just showing like the tendencies of our people, how our people is operating, dealing with that. And you can, like I said, you can see how we operate is camps and assemblies now, similar to how our fathers was operating. Go ahead, bro.
No. I was gonna say, man, it's probably about time we shut down now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's shut it down, and we can revisit some of this history another time.
Yeah. But it's great lesson, man. Great information. We got the chronology in there. We got some prophecy involved in there. We got a lot of good discussion going. For everybody out there, like, share, and subscribe. If you aren't already subscribed, be sure to share this as much as possible. The more likes, the more people see it. The more shares, the more people see it. That's what we want. That's what you want. So with that being said, I want to say shalom and blessings to everybody. You got anything to say, brother?
Shalom and blessings to Israel out there. Keep being ready. Let us go. We're going to actually bring those T-shirts out soon. The Let Us Go T-shirts, which we should. I think that all denominations, all groups, all Israelites, all brothers and sisters in this country should make it known that spiritually we've checked out of this place, and that we're gonna represent even bringing those things out. To let us go. That's how we should feel. That's where we're at right now.
Let us go.
Let us go. So be on the lookout for the Let Us Go T-shirts. We also, if anybody is interested in donating to the work that we do and some of the productions we put together, just give us an email and we'll show you how you can donate. If anybody want to help with some of the projects we're doing, and we have some that's big productions and take a lot of time. And if you feel like you would be one of those vessels that can help with research and bringing some of the things we have planned to life, contact us about that if you want to extend your hand like that. So we have a lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff that's real time consuming. That's why we haven't been doing as many lives lately, because we're working on things that are many years in the making, and some projects that we really want to help expose to our people, to help give our people the truth and get ready for how we're feeling in the spirit that let us go. So if you have any inclination, like we're not requiring anything, if you want to, if we feel like we've added something to you, and you want to donate, if you want to even share some of your time to help with some of this work we're doing, we appreciate it all. So you got to make your voice be heard if you want to support Salt of the Earth.
Exactly. You're interested in supporting us, just email at saltoftheearth144@gmail.com. That being said, shalom and blessings, brothers and sisters. All praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. It's been your brother Bunyan, Najid, and Elisha. Salt of the Earth signing out. Shalom.
Be black.